Hello, sorry for the background noise if it's a problem. I'm doing this outside to get a little bit of a different perspective on my video here, and basically what I want to talk about tonight or today is that we have a huge problem here in the United States, okay? I mean, I go over this every day. The problem is slavery. It was supposed to have ended in 1860, in the 1860s, after we fought a brutal civil war here within the United States. 500,000 people actually died in that war. 4.5 million people volunteered in the North alone, and this was an ugly war. All right, this was an ugly war. All right, this was an ugly war. We didn't have antibiotics back then, and to be honest, the North didn't have any kind of superior advantage at the offset of the war. They eventually did. They got repeating rifles and gun rifling, and this type of thing throughout the course of the war, and it did a lot to advance technology and weapons at the time. But that's not the point. The point is that happened towards the end of the war. Towards the beginning of the war, these men fought in brutal wars. I've read firsthand accounts of some of these battles. I've read firsthand accounts of some of these. I've read firsthand accounts of some of these warriors who fought on the battlefield. You know, some of the entries they'd write in their diaries at nighttime and stuff like that. And just to talk about, you know, the type of fear that these people had to go through. I mean, standing in a line. You know, you've got your general standing over you. He's basically telling you, look, you're not going to turn around. You're going to keep fighting. And people are getting shot. They're having arms and legs amputated, you know, right there on the battlefield. I mean, just a butcher's knife, just wham, just chop your arm right off right there. That's if you want to live. But, you know, other than that, you know, infections are going to take over. So there's a lot of people who went without arms and legs after that, and I'll just tell you right now, it was a bad, bloody war. Okay, granted, 500,000 people died. You know, we've got about 4,000 people have died in the Middle East, which was, you know, of course, well, that was actually completely unjustified. It was more about, you know, expansion of, you know, of some of these corporations and you know, getting a foothold on a whole bunch of foreign oil and taking over assets and stuff like that. I think Halliburton's stock price went up, I think 400% over within the first couple of years of that war. I have to go back but some kind of inordinate amount. Either way, the point is that we know that it's slavery. You know, here's the thing: drug prohibition is slavery. Okay, I take slavery seriously. I take it very seriously. Some people say, oh, well, you know, they were doing drugs, they were druggers, so therefore slavery becomes, you know, acceptable. For me, it's not. Okay, I don't look down my nose at people and feel good about hurting them because I like to look down my nose at people. I was just watching a video here probably 30 minutes ago. It was this 3-year-old kid, and he was in this church congregation, and he was singing this song, and he said something like Romans 26 and 27, somebody's wrong, Romans 26 and 27, ain't no homos going to heaven. And then, by the time this song was about, he wasn't even finished. By the time he got through that lyric right there, everybody in the congregation stood up, started clapping and screaming, yeah, yeah, yeah. There was even one guy in the back who said, that's my son. I mean, you know, or that's my boy, or whatever. I mean, these people were getting happy, you know, about a 3-year-old bashing, you know, a group, hate crime, you know, basically not crime, hate speech, you know, right here in a church, which is supposed to be the, you know, the precipice of you know, morality, you know. And if you read the Bible, it is moral, you know. There's a lot of people out there that take out their anger on Christians or the churches, based on what's, they believe, the Bible says, but these people should not symbolize in your mind what Christianity truly is. You should read the Bible. It's actually really, really good. But what's really interesting about it to me is that, even in the Bible, Jesus Christ calls out those people right there, and he's like, look, he's like, you go to church, you know what I'm saying? You think you're better than somebody else. You know what I'm saying? And then, pain in your direction. You know what I mean? I mean, this is literally, I'm sure the translations aren't perfect, but what he literally said was, woe to you. You know what I mean? And so what he was saying was, you go to church, then you go down to the marketplace, and then you go down, and when you're in the church, everybody gets up and greets each other, and in the marketplace, everybody greets each other. Everybody feels important. You know what I'm saying? And and just because you go to church doesn't make it okay. And that's the same thing as when they wanted the Pharisees. Now, this was a church class. These were churchy people. That's what they did. And they would constantly call out, Christ for not wanting to bash. You see what I'm saying? Which is exactly what the church is doing right here. But, so that's, and I spoke to somebody about this the other day and said, well, it's just human nature. And I'm thinking, if that's human nature, get me off the human species, man. You know what I mean? I don't want to even consider myself human. I don't even want to consider that that's even possibly human nature. That's how much it bothers me. That's how disgusted I am with these people. And to be honest with you, I mean, I wouldn't mind inflicting some bodily damage on these people. But they're the kind of people that would enjoy it because they feel like now they've degraded your morality. And they would take it with a smile. But either way, the point is that these individuals and this scenario is basically the same type of situation as what exactly it is that I'm trying to say. You don't have the right, okay, just because a woman has engaged in prostitution, to throw a stone and stone her to death. Okay, now could you see that? Now, how about this? You don't have the right to put her in prison for it. Oh, well, that's different. Oh, hell yeah, let's put these people in prison for accepting of prostitution and, two consensual adults. What do you think marriage is? Why don't you put, I'm not even going to say it. I mean, here's the point. Marriage, okay, legalized prostitution. It's a contract. It's a business contract. If you wanted a marriage, you go to church to get married. It's a function of religion. That's the point. That's the point. It's a contract. It's a business contract. You understand that? You go into a legal court, which isn't even part of the church, or at least it shouldn't be. I guess it could, which would be just another form of tyranny. That would be, violating separation of church and state, of course. Somebody probably knows that. I mean, I'd be surprised. But either ways, the point is that whenever you, anyways, I think you understand basically what it is that I'm trying to say. It's a problem, okay? And so either way, and not to insult anybody or whatever. I mean, look, the point is moot. The stone shouldn't be cast. There should be no injury made to this individual. You don't have the right to hurt somebody just because you don't agree with what they're doing, or because it doesn't fit your morality. What that's called is woe to you. You go to church. You love greetings. You love greetings in the marketplaces and the synagogues. You understand what Christ was saying right there? You went to church. You felt like you were better than somebody because they didn't fit your moral code of conduct. Your moral code of conduct? You understand what I'm saying? So because it didn't fit your moral code of conduct, which really isn't a moral code of conduct, what it is a way for you to feel better than somebody because you've got problems, man. I mean, let's face it. Why do you need to feel better than somebody? I mean, seriously, I thought about that. That actually struck me earlier, and I was sitting there and I was thinking about it, and it struck me, and I said, why would I ever want to feel better than somebody else? You know what I mean? I mean, why? I couldn't understand it, you know what I mean? But I'm not you. You see what I mean? That's the difference. So, you know, I finally had to come to the conclusion that some people are different. And I was thinking about, and I was watching these cats earlier, and there was these cats, and some of them would just lay down in a puddle of water or in a bathtub, and they would just be happy with it, and just like, oh, it's warm, it feels good. And I thought to myself, wow, now those cats are different. You know what I mean? They probably couldn't understand fear of water. If you tried to explain it to them, they think you're nuts, man. And that's the same thing. That's the exact same thing that I'm talking about. I don't have the same biology. It's instinctually different for me. I can't understand it, man. I can't understand going to church as a way to feel better than somebody. I can't understand that. So then I can hire somebody to carry out violence for me and say, well, that's not a crime. Do you see what I mean? But it is. It doesn't matter if you get away with it or not. You still committed a crime. I don't care. Okay? And it's just like I was watching this video earlier. It was about this guy who supposedly tried to hire somebody to kill his ex-wife. Incidentally, it was a Christian rock group guy, and he was getting bashed on by this other guy who's an atheist, so he violated his code of conduct, and this guy was violating his code of conduct, and, oh, buddy, oh, boy, we're at odds because we don't believe the same. Well, either ways, the point of the story is that, you know, I can remember seeing video of Tupac when he went to court, and one of his arguments was, you know, there's all these kids, you know, they agree with, they look up to me, and the judge was sitting there thinking, and the judge sat there and said, well, I greatly take into consideration what you're saying. You know, he may have had a 12-year-old son who looked up to him. I mean, who knows? And I'm sitting there and I thought about it, and I thought, you know, that puts the legal system in a precarious position with some people. There's probably some people on the face of this earth that are just so widely recognized that it actually does become somewhat of a problem to inflict harm upon them for fear of what you might, you know, cause and residual damage to the emotions of so many other people. Now that we have all this technology to broadcast ourselves so many places, but the point is that even if these people got away with something, they still did it. You know what I mean? So, and there you are. You know what I mean? And the point of me saying this to you is because that's what you're all about. You thought that just because you went to church, you know what I'm saying, and it felt better than somebody. You see what I'm saying? I want you to know that this doesn't fit your little moral code of conduct, punk. Because if I can get that through to some people, I know that I can get through to some people. You understand what I'm saying? And, you know, it just doesn't matter, man. It just doesn't matter what the situation is. Crimes are crimes. They're there, okay? Trust me. Somebody saw it somewhere. In this day and age, you're being surveilled 7 ways till Sunday. And you got every single telephone in the United States of America is recording for a fact. That's not any second guessing anymore. Ever since they false flagged 9/11, and well, you'd have to do a little research to understand how that was actually an inside job. And they went to work. I mean, they went to work, man. And I've seen engineers talk about, you know, like Building 7, and they were like, they put in work on this. You know what I mean? And I mean, they went in, they modified, you know, video clips. They modified so that you know, they released images from the National Institute of Science and Technology, and then released different video later on where you could hear the sound of an explosion before certain buildings collapsed, and like the video only has like 10,000 views on YouTube, and nobody knows. I got a whole playlist set up on the subject. Actually, it's not on this YouTube channel. It's on my other YouTube channel, Let's Talk Politics, with an X. But the point is that this information's out there. It's beside the point. You know, irregardless, you know, I think you get exactly what it is that I'm trying to say right now. So I'm just gonna probably leave it at this, but you know, it just doesn't matter, man. It really doesn't. You know, I mean, I'm seriously sitting here watching television about how this guy's got his wife and his daughter in his basement for like 7 years or 10 years or maybe it's 15 years. I don't know. And not to undermine the situation, but I want you to understand that I had to sit there and watch this as if it was actually important in the grand scheme of things, because yes, it's very important and very horrible. But in the grand scheme of things, that's a distraction. That's a distraction. Okay? And okay, while we're watching this guy, about this guy who's got 2 people in his basement, okay, we're sitting there with millions of people in our basement judging him while you're doing the same thing, man, on a much broader scale. And I'm sitting here like, wow, it's that big of a deal? Because we do it to millions of people in order to feel better, like we're better than somebody. I mean, so how much of a moral code is there? I mean, why do you care? You know? Maybe you ought to think about it from that point of view. You know? What about all the people in prison getting raped? You know what I mean? On a weekly, daily basis in prison right now, so that a gang can exist. So that violence can ensue. You know? So that gangs can sprout up, you know, pop up and start shooting and killing each other, drive-by shootings, mass violence. I mean, Milton Friedman, he estimated about 10,000 a year. Hell, that was back in the 80s. Mexico's got it. They quit keeping count once it got up to 16,000 a year. Drug prohibition-related deaths. Not a drug-related death, a drug prohibition-related death. If it was a drug-related death, that'd be like taking too many Advil and your heart stops. That's a drug-related death. When Advil becomes completely illegal, and then it starts getting sold out there on a black market, and people start killing each other over double dealings because they can't call the cops, that's a drug prohibition-related death. There's a difference. Anyway, so, you know, it's unrealistic, man. It's unrealistic. You know, just to think of people getting abducted off the streets. To think that there's at any given moment in time in the United States more people enslaved than there was prior to the Civil War. More slaves in this country than there was prior to the Civil War. And considering that 500,000 people went out, fought, and died for it to end, so it could pop back up. Anyways, I think I'm going to cut it off right there, but I hope you get the point of what I'm saying. Please check out the description. I'll have a lot of statistics in there. You know, not all the statistics I would like to have in there. You could take into consideration an additional statistic. We've got more people in prison for drugs than all other crimes combined. You know, and it's not for drugs. It's really for nothing. You can't even say that. You can't say this many people are in prison for drugs. You can say this many people are enslaved, period. They're not in there for anything but slavery in and of itself. That's it. That's it. So, you know, we've got more people enslaved, more slaves. And it's like, I feel like I need to say prison for drugs so people will register what I'm trying to say here. No, please understand, slaves. So, I mean, we've got more slaves in this country than we had prior to the Civil War. That's a problem. All right? That's a problem. All right? You know, people getting, you know, take drug out of their house. You know, in the 80s, we had about 2,500 SWATs a year, SWAT team deployments. Now, it's around 20,000. No, 40,000. I mean, they just go around kicking doors in. You know what I mean? They might find a little, you know, half a gram of marijuana in there. It's worth killing your dog. Half the time, they may even kill you. I mean, who knows? And it doesn't happen half the time. But my point is to just think about it. I mean, who's to say what happened while they were in there? They kill you. You're dead. You know what I'm saying? By the hands of the same people that are supposed to be keeping you safe? Is that not a problem? You know, I read the book. It's called The Innocent Man by John Grisham. I read that whole book. It's probably about 400 pages. About one guy who went to prison for something he didn't do. Okay? Well, he had been on either 2 or 3 prior times charged with rape. This is John Grisham's only nonfiction book he's ever written. And I sat there and thought to myself, you know, I mean, he could have done it. I mean, it's like, you know, I mean, they didn't have the technology to exonerate him. They didn't have the technology to you know, prove that he hadn't done it until they, and then once they had the technology, I mean, they had kept up with that evidence. You know what I mean? And they got him out of prison. You know what I mean? Well, there's people in prison right now, out of that same town area, that have been sent to prison in times recent for life. For not even manufacturing methamphetamines, attempting to manufacture methamphetamine. I mean, this is like Hitler, man. Okay? Because once they just start rounding up innocent people, because right now we're on 39 million. Drug prohibition has consumed 39 million innocent people's lives for one period of time or another. Probably ruined about 15 million marriages. Out of that 39, probably 20 million marriages got ruined. I mean, who knows? Probably a whole bunch of people committed suicide. You know, so, I mean, you just can't even understand it. I mean, this is the point, man. This country was supposed to be founded on freedom. You know, there was wars fought over that very subject matter. A lot of people died. A lot of blood got shed. Now, try to understand this. We are the worst when it comes to prisons, slavery, chains, captivity. I mean, serious torture. Torture! You know these people are being tortured? How is that not torture? To take an innocent person and drag them away for a few years or decades. I mean, come on. And there are people being tortured in Mexico. A lot more than the few dozen there's in Guantanamo Bay that may have been tortured by now. And yeah, it's horrible what's going on in Guantanamo Bay. But you know what? This is worse. A lot worse. And I don't hear shit about it from anybody. I'm sick of it. I'm so frustrated, man. You know, it's just like these yuppie idiots, man. Like, I turn on RT America, and you hear these people put on these little false air, false, you know, pretentious, most pretentious people. Oh, and they put on these, like, Osama bin Laden, Osama, and it's just like, dude, man, you play. I mean, I hear the same thing on RT They got about 2 hours of reporting, and then they loop it for 24 hours. And you got this Tom Hartman infomercial that they've been playing. Ooh, this new thing you might glean. Have you ever had a story and it just amazes you, and you glean a little bit more, and you glean a little bit more, and I'm sitting here like, bro, how many times have I heard you say this? I feel like I'm going to commit suicide if I have to hear this one more time. And then I turn on Tom Hartman, and he's all like, oh, the left is like where it's all at. I mean, look at the right. So he's all partisan and like playing team sports with, a few million people's lives. Like the Cowboys, yeah! Yeah! It was the Cowboys, boy! I put on my... Put that blue face paint on, boy! And just go on and on and on and on and on and on and on about all this superficial shit. Do you understand what slavery is? I'm more concerned about a few million people sitting around in chains. Because those are the people you've all the way cornered. You put them in a corner, and then you closed in on them, and now you got them held up somewhere. And I'm sick of it! That's different than, like, say, for example, you ruin the economy. When the government goes out and starts killing people, it's pretty bad. I think I'd rather be killed than spend the rest of my life in prison so that murderers and rapists can prevail. Oh, yay! Mass murder.